I'm sure a lot of people will be disappointed.
Hello everybody, this is Black Coffee with Ice. It's your host Justin Penner here, and today we are doing a single person podcast. The reason why I wanted to do this, for a couple reasons. There's a lot of hot, trending, controversial topics in the Canadian public that I want to discuss, as well as I emailed and messaged and texted and DM'd every single potential guest, and no one was available this week, so we're going to make do with what we have. And I just have to let you know that we have a very promising and amazing lineup coming up within the next couple of weeks. So I just wanted to debrief my opinion and just reiterate to you what I believe these scandals mean to me. And this is just for anybody who may not be really interested in reading the news, but would maybe like to be interested in to see what's actually going on in the Canadian public. So the three controversies I'm going to talk about. The first one being the SNC-Lavalin case. It's a very tricky situation, and I'm excited to dive deep into it and let you know what it's all about. Another thing I want to talk about is just the sudden surge of measles outbreaks and just my opinions on the potential side effects of people not getting vaccines versus getting vaccines, and why I believe that it is very important to get vaccines, not just for yourself, but other individuals who may be immunocompromised that would otherwise want a vaccine but may not be able to due to some type of condition. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was just the Amber Alert controversy. I feel like I haven't really read too much on it, and I did not get the alert, but from my understanding, the police were looking for an individual, and instead of having an alert saying that they were looking for a missing person, they sent out a mass message trying to locate a specific individual to convict them. So those are the three things I'm going to be talking about, and now I'm just going to debrief you on the SNC-Lavalin case. And if you haven't heard about any of this before, that's a good thing, because now you will, and you won't have to search through all the tedious, boring news. So how I'm going to break this down, I just wanted to begin by telling you a little bit about SNC-Lavalin. So SNC-Lavalin is a very large company. I believe they're out of Montreal, Quebec, and they have around 9,000 employees. So in 2010 and 11, I'm not going to get into all the details of all the shady stuff they did, but essentially throughout Libya, different countries, they committed a lot of fraudulent acts. And essentially what happened was the justice minister... So, okay, SNC-Lavalin, they committed all these fraudulent acts. So SNC-Lavalin itself is a company that lobbies a lot of money to the Liberal government. So for those of you who don't know what that means, it's just they give a lot of money to the Liberals. While SNC-Lavalin was being prosecuted, SNC-Lavalin had like 50-something meetings with the PMO, the Prime Minister's office. They lobbied, so gave money in order to try and convince them to rewrite the criminal code in order for them to avoid probable conviction. The reason why they wanted to do this, because if they avoid probable conviction, then they won't go out of business and lose potentially 9,000 jobs, which is very dangerous for their economy. And the funny thing is about this situation is that it's not that Joe Blow making 50 to 100 grand a year is making these potential criminal acts, but it's the people that are making millions, that are very high up in the company. So the actions of those lead to a residual effect, which inevitably really could potentially be catastrophic for 9,000 people plus. So that's just where this situation goes. And to just talk about the Jodi Wilson Raybould controversy. So she was the only Indigenous member on the cabinet, and it was looked at as a very positive win for the Canadian government to have this person with such an important position. This almost seemed like a step in the right direction with respect to truth and reconciliation. But what happened was, I believe this Jodi Wilson Raybould, I believe what she did is, as a justice minister, she was not okay with the government potentially rewriting the law, literally rewriting the law for this company to avoid prosecution. And inevitably, she got demoted from justice minister to veterans affairs minister. And this almost reveals a systemic problem that is embedded within society today. She's an Indigenous woman, and just because she wanted to speak up, she got demoted, which is a little bit shocking to me, and just talking with other coworkers and people I know, just because that is so anti what the Liberal government was supposed to be about. So maybe this is revealing some hidden tension, or I'm not too sure exactly, but this is where the whole situation is a little bit risky. So the Prime Minister essentially demoted this woman because she was going to speak up on this very shady matter. So just playing devil's advocate here, I can understand where the government is coming from, just because the loss of 9,000 jobs would be extremely catastrophic. But essentially changing the law for a company to avoid prosecution is extremely unethical, and especially demoting your only Indigenous person on the cabinet really hinders the progress we're having with respect to truth and reconciliation. So I believe that this is where, although 9,000 jobs could be lost, they were the ones who broke the law. But if you really think about those individuals, their families will suffer. But we really have to think about this Jodi Wilson Raybould, and it almost appears that because she spoke up, she was the one who got demoted. So I feel like this is where the big controversy is. And I think myself included, along with other individuals, thought that Trudeau wasn't like all these other politicians, that maybe he would not partake in this shady political business, but it appears that he is exactly the same as everybody else. So overall, SNC-Lavalin wanted to get changes written in the criminal code. So if you think about this, I know plenty of people that went to jail. So imagine this. You grew up in poverty. You didn't really have very many options. So you decide to partake in selling some illegal substance. If you get caught and you're waiting on trial, this is the equivalent to giving money to the government in order to change the law so you do not get convicted. So it's allegedly okay. Is it supposed to be okay for this big company? I personally don't think so. And although these jobs will be lost, this is just the unraveling of the surface of the potential catastrophe waiting to happen. So although 9,000 jobs will be lost, I think this is extremely unethical by the president. I mean, by the prime minister, by the prime minister's office. And this really messes up and really hinders the progress of truth and reconciliation. So yeah, that's just what's happening. That's basically the whole story for everybody who doesn't really watch the news. I personally never really watched the news until I got an interview for medical school, and I realized that in order to be a good physician or potential physician, you really have to know what's going on in the city. And I feel like if you're just getting into the news, The Current, it's a CBC podcast. It's a very good podcast, and this is where, pardon me, I got most of this information from. So that is essentially the problem going on with respect to this. And then, so now I'm going to talk to you just about the measles surge. So I just saw a article today. It said Vancouver Coastal Health confirms several cases of measles in Vancouver schools. There's multiple cases of measles at 2 French schools, and it's highly infectious, as we already know. And so I just wanted to explain a little bit about microbiology for people who may not know. So I had to take a couple microbiology classes for my biochem degree, and I got to tell you, that was the most, even though I didn't really like the material because it did involve a lot of lab work, and I'm not really into the lab portion as much. I really like learning in the classroom, but anyways, that's just why I didn't pursue microbiology. But it's a very fascinating concept. Like, there is so many different bacteria in us, on us, and so there's 3 different types of particles or cells I'm going to talk about. So there's eukaryotic cells, that's the cells that make up us. We have prokaryotic, that's the bacteria, and then, so those are things that are considered living. And then we also have viruses. Viruses are not necessarily considered living due to some tenets of the cell theory, but I'm not going to go really into that. But I just wanted to let you know that this virus is very dangerous, and it can transmit very rapidly. So I just wanted to let you know that it's so insane how far we've advanced as a society with respect to all the medical innovations. Like, vaccines and different antibiotics are the only reason why we are still doing and flourishing as well as we are. So, for example, the reason why we take antibiotics, right? You have an infection, and then your body can't clear it out on its own. So say you have a cut, it's infected. You get antibiotics, and it attacks all the bacteria. And the reason why you have to finish the antibiotics, because if you don't finish the antibiotics, so say you have a 10-day antibiotic, you do it till day 8, and then you stop. Those last 2 days, the infection might almost be entirely gone, but the very resistant bugs are left till the latest, and if you stop the antibiotics before those are wiped out, those will multiply, and then you'll have an infection that's even more difficult to stop. So that just leads to things. I don't know if you are familiar with MRSA. It's a very common thing in hospitals, but it's extremely difficult to get rid of. It's basically called methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is a specific bacteria, and being methicillin-resistant is essentially being resistant to a large portion of the antibiotics that would treat that. So if you have an infection like that, it's very dangerous and hard to get rid of. And so that's the craziest thing that I learned in microbiology, is that we could just be having a normal life, and then we just get the wrong bacteria in our mouth, in our nose, and we get infected with it. We could potentially die. Like, that's just how meningitis works. It's floating through the sky. So if you think about that with respect to people that are not vaccinated. So although I believe people have a right to choose what kind of care they have, and that's definitely how we're moving towards as a society. Where back in the day, it used to be very paternalistic. We used to focus a lot on just the physician making the decision, but now we are very focused on patient-centered care and worrying about what the individual wants, not treating the disease so much, but treating the person as a whole, mixing in modern medicine with traditional, holistic, spiritual type of things. So that's why I really love this field and how we're headed. But if you think about it, for example, if we all have an antibiotic, so I was explaining antibiotics, but now I'm going to explain vaccines. How this works, all right? So this kind of relates. So say you get a bug in you, right? You get a cold. I don't know if you're familiar with, if you get a cold, you can't get sick again from that same cold. So what happens is you have a primary immune response and a secondary immune response. So how this works is when you have a bacteria in you, your body, it takes about a week or two to build up the immune response to get rid of the cold, or however long it takes. So while your body is building up that immune response, it's making these memory B cells, it's making all these different immunological cells that attack this, and it's essentially your defense mechanism. And so it takes about a week or two, and then during that time, you're feeling physically sick. You can transmit the virus or the cold or the bacteria, whatever it is. But in that time, your body's building up an immune response. So that's your primary immune response. Then, so say you get better, whatever. After that process is over, you have these memory B cells that stay in your body. Some stay forever, some don't. But they stay in your body, and then when you come into contact, or if you come into contact with that bacteria again, your secondary immune response kicks in, and you have all those memory B cells that go and initiate the immune response very quick. They remember it, and that's why we use vaccines. So vaccines are an attenuated, lesser version of the actual virus or the bacteria. You put it in, your body initiates an immune response, and after that is over, you store those B cells or those memory B cells, and then if you come in, so for example, if you have the measles vaccine, has those memory B cells, you come into contact with measles again, and then your immune system makes that response, and that's why you theoretically do not get infected. But the reason what I was touching on before was just how some people that are immunocompromised and cannot receive these vaccines, they might be living potentially in constant worry. And so if we all have vaccines, right, most of us do that can have it, there's a higher chance that we will have a herd immunity, that the bug won't be roaming around. So if we all get vaccines and we all do our due diligence, it really does protect those people that may want vaccines but have to live in almost a constant fear because their immune system or whatever other type condition will not allow them to get it. Some people may be allergic. So we are not only getting vaccines in order to help us, we're supposed to help others. And the paper that linked it to autism, I believe that was just a causation versus correlation, or I was reading somewhere that might have been fraudulent claims by a physician who got his license removed. I am not too sure on that. But what I do know is that almost every single type of treatment you have, whether it be Advil, whether it be a vitamin C, there's always going to be risks and benefits to this situation. And although vaccines may have a lot of pros, there is a very small percentage that something adverse can ensue. And in order to mediate that, other people just avoid vaccines as a whole. But in my honest opinion, I do not think that is the best way to go about things. So I'm very passionate about this. If I run into somebody who doesn't really understand how vaccines work, I am usually the guy to talk to them and explain it to them. And although it is their decision to whether or not to get the vaccine, it's up to me as a person who really is passionate about how the body works and science and all the diseases and I'm just passionate about the body and health and of course and educating as well. So if I ever see somebody who is very anti-vaccine, I would love to just sit down with them and explain to them why these work. And although there is some potential cons, there is a lot more pros that outweigh those cons, in my opinion. I can't force anybody to do anything, but what I can do is I can educate somebody in a non-combative way and let them make the decision after I lay out all the facts. So this is very scary how there's measles going around, because although what I was saying, there's always risks. Just a kind of a related example, birth control. The pill, it's 99 point whatever guaranteed, but there's always those 0.1s. So what if somebody is vaccinated and they do contract the measles just due to the fact that they are that 0.1? Somebody has to be the 0.1%. And it's a very scary thing, because any type of potentially deadly bacteria or virus can be floating around. And so another thing too is that antibiotics and vaccines, they're almost at an arms race with bacteria. It's like bacteria evolves, then we got to evolve. The bacteria evolves, and then we have to evolve. And this is a constant arms length battle. And if we don't win it, then there could be potentially catastrophic consequences. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on the measles outbreak. I know it's coming in Washington, now it's BC. Thankfully, I live in Winnipeg. Maybe it's too cold for that respective virus to live. No, I doubt that. But maybe it's just because we are central. I'm not a geography guy, but we're kind of in the middle, I believe. And so maybe it's going to work its way just with how fast people move and fly planes. It's, a disease that is on one part of the world can easily come here, or vice versa. So yeah, I just wanted to tell everybody a little bit about how that works. And now I'm going to talk to you about the Amber Alert thing. So I'm just going to read through this article, give you some opinions. So I was actually on Facebook the other night, and I was seeing all these individuals talk about how they saw this Amber Alert, about this what appeared to be somebody named Rupesh Rajukumar, age 41. So what it says is, Peel Regional Police active Amber Alert. Victim is Raya Rakumar, age 11. Suspect Rupesh. Vehicle is a silver Honda Civic. Last known location, eastbound 401. If observed, please call. So it's a very troubling situation. I couldn't imagine the family and how they feel. This is a very, very terrible case. And what happened was that the Peel Regional Police officer sent alert at 11 p.m. to help find Raya, R-I-Y-A, who was believed to be with her father. And oh my goodness, the mother called the police after they failed to return home from celebrating her birthday. Raya did not live with her father on a full-time basis, and she was found dead at her home in Brampton. Oh, it's terrible. So yeah, Amber Alerts went, as well as the media broadcasts are issued when officials believe a missing child is in serious danger and have sufficient information to launch a public search. Apparently, many people felt their sleep was more important than the urgent plea. Okay, so this is where I see some people complaining in regards to the alert that may have woken them up. It's hard to really, I can empathize with somebody, because if I had a very big exam the next day, or if I had a very important thing where I had to wake up early and had to get a sufficient amount of sleep to perform the best I could, I would be a little bit upset if I woke up. But I feel like in this society almost, we are so focused on ourselves that sometimes we have to take a step back. We have to really empathize with the mother in this situation, the family members in this situation. Think about Raya, for example. We have to take a step back and really think about how beneficial technology can really be. I mean, although it did hinder some people's sleep, and it may have seemed initially annoying, as I was seeing everybody posting that, why are they looking for what looks to seem to be an Indian man, aged 41? They didn't really understand, and maybe they were just frustrated because they just woke up. But if we think about this and take a step back, this is a really beneficial thing, and I think this will set precedence for future initiatives in regards to finding missing children. So I feel like, we're talking about missing children. Okay, the one thing that I'm a little bit upset about, though, is with all the missing, and I hate to say it like this because this is a very delicate situation. This is very terrible. But where are all the alerts for all the missing and murdered Indigenous women? Where are, I like how this is going to set precedents for future outcomes, but this really has me thinking, why hasn't this been used before? And are we going to start doing this more often? Because I feel that with all the negativity associated with social media, and the technological advancement, I believe that this is something that could potentially be very useful in future circumstances. I would be okay with sacrificing a little bit of sleep in order to potentially save missing children, missing people, put people under conviction. So, sorry about that. But yeah, this is a very tough situation. Anytime a child is involved, it's very tough, and I just want everybody to send out her blessings to Raya. This is terrible, but maybe this terribly catastrophic event can potentially set precedents to set out the Amber Alert as soon as we think that a child is missing, and this could definitely lead to a lot of benefit in the future. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And although it was nobody else but me, I feel like this was a very awesome podcast. So have a great day. I have a lot of good things coming up the next week. So stay tuned. And thank you very much.